Welcome everybody, episode 6, it's 1969, this is Needle Drop Nation, and this year we're celebrating the beat that brought us together as ever. I'm joined by the amazing Jodi Baras, and she knows more about music than I've had hot dinners. It is always a privilege chatting to you, Jodi, because you are so knowledgeable. You should have been a music journo for sure.
That was actually that was my dream in life. That was my dream. It was to become a music journalist, become a guest writer for Rolling Stone magazine. That was like my dream job, to be quite honest. And I basically worked on documentaries, what one of the things is that it always got me into understanding and learning about music, whether it's in pop culture or even understanding classical music to a level that resonates, recall memory as well as evoking emotion. And I feel that this show definitely does that. As we say, it's how us Gen Xers, you, Nick, me, Jodi Barrios, it's a love letter to us, how we celebrate music. And this is basically something that is a celebratory way of doing it through this podcast. So, Nick, it wouldn't be possible without you. This is somewhat like living my dream, that it is like a hobby. So you are fulfilling that. I just wanted to say.
You and me both. No, I'm living my dream as well. It's absolutely brilliant. And 69, although I was only a mere slip of a boy at age 3 and maybe 3.5, it was a monumental year, and we've got some amazing people to talk about. Not least, first and foremost, we've not mentioned him at all so far, and yet he is probably the king of rock and roll. I'm of course talking about the amazing Elvis Presley. We've got a couple of his songs. We talked about him in 1969 because this is when he started his residency in Vegas all those years ago. Can you believe it? And man, I wish I was able to actually go and see him because I think he's just, I don't think he's got such a unique voice, Jodi. Just the way of performing that I think just set him out on his own.
Oh yeah, and I mean, Mr. Hunka Hunka Burnin' Love. He was known as the king, king of rock and roll. And it was interesting as we were going through our research as far as the king. He did serve in the military in the United States from 1958 to 1960, and it was something that I overlooked. And he was in the service. And this funny thing was he was in the service during his career as an artist, and that's what's really fascinating. And hey, listen, 1969, he has 2 great hits. The 2 hits that came out were In the Ghetto, and one of the songs that you and I really both like is Suspicious Minds.
Yeah.
That is a truly amazing song.
It is. I love it. It's just the way it changes. It goes from one melodic little thing to then clips into Caught in a Trap. And I don't know, just only he could sing that the way he sings it. And the legacy of his songs is just unbelievable. And in fact, if you, I know it's not in 69, but there's a YouTube video of him, one of his very, very last Vegas performances, and he's big, and he's kind of sweating, and the band, and he sings Unchained Melody.
Oh wow!
Song, and if you watch it, it's really interesting. People either kind of love it or hate it. They see this amazing person that did have such an incredible voice, but looking, frail and not really on top of his game. But then the way I look at it, and the other half of the population, I think, look at it as to say, wow, what an amazing voice he still had. Even when he wasn't well, he was belting out this song. It was, playing it on the piano. He even says,
"Wow,
I might not get the right notes." But yeah, if you ever get a chance, in fact, I'll put the link in the show notes. It'd be really interesting to see what
Mhm.
people think. But yeah, what a musical legend
Mhm.
Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley was. Now, another thing that happened in 1969 that we can't overlook, and I still can't get away from the fact that it is 240,000 miles away. I
Mm.
just,
Yes.
and that's obviously something that had never been done before.
Mhm.
It's actually set a man on the moon. I mean, to this day,
Mhm.
I still find that incredible. To any naysayers who say it was all faked, do you really think the Russians wouldn't have like blown us up, or the Chinese would have been would have exposed that myth by now? You know, so
Exactly. No, they were going through tension, so they were distracted. But of course, lo and behold, Neil Armstrong
yeah.
and his team, Apollo 11, lands on the moon, and lo and behold, a step forward for mankind in technology and science, which was incredible.
Oh, it is when you think we have more. Can't find my phone now. We have more computing power in our cell phones than
Yes.
they had, and
Hmm.
that's what I find just incredible. That's what makes it even more amazing. And we were listening. I was listening to one of my favourite songs. It was the very first song for David Bowie, "The Space Oddity," which is brilliant. And the line,
Oh my gosh,
"Now I've passed
beautiful.
one, yeah, now I've passed 100,000 miles," and that's what triggered me to look it up. I'm thinking, he said 100,000 miles. It can't be that far. It's like, yeah, it's that
Hmm.
far and double and then a bit more. It's like,
Hmm.
it's incredible. But having said that, what an
Oh my
achievement,
goodness.
uh, and what a song. That was his first song to be released, and he comes up with that. I think he had talent.
Yeah, I think so too. For young David Bowie, he
Yeah.
definitely had talent. And what's interesting about that song, even later in the years, for any Bowie fan, y- I used to actually would type um, the first line to a colleague who can relate to David Bowie. They're going to type the next line, and we would just go on and on and on. And it's just, this song really embodies David Bowie's amazing songwriting. I mean, it's his first single, and we know that in the years to come after, we will definitely look into his transformation as a performer, as an artist, as a
Mm.
songwriter. And yes, I mean, one of the things that we are grateful for as music lovers, Nick
Yeah.
and I, is that David Bowie was around. This guy is a truly, he's a genius. He's a legend. And one thing I forgot to mention, Nick, when we were talking, was that there was that wasn't a documentary, but there was an exhibit that was in London after he passed away. It
Mm.
traveled to the Brooklyn Museum here in New York. I actually I went twice.
Oh wow.
And of all the artwork that paid tribute to him, there were images on the screen of some of his music videos when he was performing live at Top of the Pops. And seeing him on his phases of different of David Bowie, which was to me my treat. That was my treat, watching it. Watching the history and evolution of David Bowie as a Machiavellian, and he inspired a lot of people like Madonna,
Mm.
Lady Gaga, because of that Machiavellian, that recreation of identity as his music changes and evolves. And that to me is what a real artist, a gifted artist, an entertainer is, to capture their audience. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. And just really quickly, one of the they were showing a documentary on the screen, and it was from the person who worked with David Bowie, I think, on his second to his last album, not his last album, who collaborated with him in the studio. Um, he had said that, I think it was the musical engineer. David always made everybody feel as a part of the team. You know,
Nice.
at one moment when he comes in and you just meet him, you say, "Oh my God, I'm going to be working with David Bowie." But he said, when you do work with him, he always wants to hear your ideas. He always makes everybody felt as if they contributed to the project. And how many geniuses do you know are artists that you would feel have that
Yeah,
type of
always,
collaboration,
always so humble.
approach.
Mm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember seeing. I remember years ago. Well, I was a bit of a mega fan when I was 16. When I got my first job. And remember I told you the story about I bought the Who box set. Um, First of all,
Yes, yes, yes.
well, that was also at the time when VHS videos were still quite in their infancy. And so in the shop I was working, we also had some videos. One of them being "The Man Who Fell to Earth," which is like David Bowie
Yes.
played the lead character. And I bought. And I paid, I think, back in those days about £79 for this video. But I just, I was just so into him, and it was just like, man, yeah, anything about David Bowie I could get my hands on. I was a strange film, I'll be honest, but
Oh no, I thought it was a great film myself. So I mean,
a bit weird and wonderful. But it was really good. I know, yeah. If you liked it, then it was a fantastic film. But yeah, so I loved that. And I remember when later on in life when he was his iterations, um, and of course for the Live Aid, all
yes,
these artists we often say, oh, and they were at Live Aid, and of course he did uh, the duo with Mick Jagger,
yes.
Dancing in the Street, which again
Hmm.
was one of my highlights from Live Aid. It was
Oh yeah,
two
yeah.
two icons that had obviously known each other rather a long time.
That is true. They've known each other since the heyday, so it would probably was like it was a reunion for them. So
Yeah, for
it
sure,
was
and that's nice. I think it's what people certainly from a UK perspective. I think back in the late '60s, early '70s, and probably still to a degree now, because we're a tiny little place, really. Um, all of the bands kind of get to know each other because they're all on the same circuits and using the same people, and so yeah, these friendships develop. So that's why lots of lots of our big famous musicians have all worked with each other. We talk about Eric Clapton. He's
hmm
played, on, he's played with pretty much every band, not necessarily as a band member, but,
But he's
but
also great as a solo artist too. I
exactly
mean, he
as
had
his
one of the
guitar
best,
playing.
one of
Yeah,
exactly his guitar playing and his songwriting. And that's just something that's amazing about Eric Clapton. And yeah, Cream. There you go, late
yeah,
'60s.
we love them. We love them. So anyway, we got David Bowie on our playlist. Now, one of the other big events of '69 was the whole weekend of Woodstock.
Well,
Now, that's not very far from where you are in New York, is it?
no, it's upstate. Okay, so it's several hours. It's probably about 10-hour drive from where I'm at, and yeah, think about it. A whole weekend of entertainment, rock star and blues lineup ready for the audience. These baby boomers, literally enjoying, this lineup for like 2 or 3 consecutive days.
Yeah,
I mean, just even thinking about the energy level, you've got Hendrix, you've got Joplin, you've got the Stones, you've got people. I mean, this was like a privilege for people to be a part of that event. And, of course, there are documentaries that have footage,
yeah,
that show footage from that festival. But, I could only imagine sometimes when I think about and I study or look at, you know, the material and what had transpired in Woodstock. Sometimes I was like, oh my God, if I was a late teen or in my 20s at that moment, I think I would be extremely exhausted. But again, weekend from all that partying, all that performance, getting so inspired and just like, I probably wouldn't be sleeping. I would
no,
probably,
yeah. I mean, when would you get sleep? I mean, we think of was excuse me. I mean, I'm going to sound totally unknowledgeable now, but so did Woodstock ever? Then did they ever do Woodstock again, or
they
was it
did.
just
They made efforts to try to do Woodstock, I think, in the late '90s. During the grunge period, around that period, but it did not live up to. It did
what
not
was
live up,
on that?
yeah,
Yeah,
to the original Woodstock back in 1969. I mean, but even like one third of the line are not even around anymore. So it's like,
Yeah, that's
so it's like you cannot live up to when you saw those legends performing, and then you have some new artists, and of course, follow that tradition of our top new artists of today, along with some of our classic artists. There was a Woodstock too, and an attempt to hopefully continue the tradition, but it didn't last. So
so now we ended up with Coachella
yes, and
and
Burning
Glastonbury.
Man.
In the UK. Yeah, it's just not.
But you know what though? There was their own form of Burning Man going on. They were inspired by Hendrix. Lighting up his guitar. And that happens.
We need
That
to
energy happens at Burning Man.
we got to find out how many times Jimi Hendrix actually set fire to his guitar. We need to
Oh
get that
my
for a
goodness!
trivia. That would be in a pop quiz in some time.
E-
But
Exactly.
but yeah, but who else was in Woodstock was the Who.
Oh
And
yes.
I told you the story a couple of weeks ago. They were skint because they always broke their records every time they played. They had no money, but it was also in '69. Everything changed because one of their best albums came out, and that was the rock opera Tommy, which was unique in the fact that it was actually a piece. So we talk about uh, like themed albums at the beginning, but this was a proper story, a proper opera, if you like.
Mhm.
And yeah, it transformed them. It actually it sold gajillions, and they actually started making money, which was superb. But it's
Oh, the
interesting
track.
if you've ever seen the film, because most of us have seen the film Tommy, and there's some famous people in there. I think I'm not sure when it was. It might have been '72, I think. But you had Elton John and Tina Turner,
Hmm.
a couple of others. Oliver Reed
Oliver
um,
Reed. Yep.
was in there. Um, but the actual album, the first album, was all sung by Roger Daltrey and the Who, and he does a beautiful job. And if you hear Pinball Wizard as Elton sang it, and you hear it
Hmm.
as the Who sang it on the album, it feels totally different.
Later on, I think it was what you mentioned. It was 1971 when it went on the big screen as the rock opera, and that's when you saw Tina Turner, you know, Oliver Reed, and Elton John singing "Pinball Wizard." Right?
Mm,
It's an incredible. I mean, Tina Turner watching her as the Acid Queen.
Queen, that's right. Yeah,
Acid Queen. Acid Queen. All right, here we go now. No, but I just say that this is one of those works where, like we talked about the Beatles with Sergeant Pepper's Lonely
mm,
Hearts Club Band, Magical Mystery Tour, and now we see the Who going on this trajectory of like from a record album going into film. It's incredible, and again, another amazing soundtrack in
yeah, exactly,
1969. Yep.
absolutely. And of course, then they followed it up a few years later on with Quadrophenia.
Yes, another,
Again,
and Sting
another
was in there.
thing, absolutely, yeah.
Sting was
Some
in there. Gordon
cracking,
Sumner.
yeah, cracking songs in that as well. But a lot later. Hey, we'll cover that when we come
We'll
to.
cover that in 1975. Yep,
So, we're probably not that far away from it.
that's true. We're
So
zipping
yes,
by there.
so Tommy the Rock, that was a cracker.
Yes.
Now, before we come on to the next artists, because they are big and we've talked about them, what was in the movies in '69?
Oh,
One
so
of
we
my
have.
favourites of all
There we
time,
go. Yes.
but that's to do with Sundance Kid.
Yes. So we see young Robert Redford, young Paul Newman, and the beautiful Catherine Ross, who was in The Graduate, which was in 1968. Now we get into 1969, and this is like the epitome of the late 60s, the Wild Wild West. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Whereas, I think one of the songs from that, the soundtracks from that album And here we are, talking about the rebellion, with these young characters, in the Wild Wild West, cowboys, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
The hole in the wall gang.
The hole in the wall gang. And
Yeah.
what's really fascinating about that was that here we are, we've got these mega stars, these, like, you're talking about the legends, you know Robert Redford, Paul Newman, who are cinematic legends, and later, what really believed in really good causes. Robert Redford, on his last during his last days, he was he was the one that was one of the pioneers of the film festival in Colorado, that's based out in Colorado, and he was also an advocate for Native American rights. And that there's a show that we have called Dark Winds.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, that's on AMC, and he's one of the executive producers. And it's one of the first films that, I mean, the first shows that have Native American cast, a Native American production team, a Native American writer, and he's the executive producer. And he actually does a cameo appearance as a prisoner in jail. And it's just, and this was this Robert Redford in his early 90s, and
Wow.
and Paul Newman had, he was also a person who ventured off. He had his food products, his dressing,
Salad
but
dressing.
exactly. But these are cinematic idols, icons.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you're watching them.
Yeah, absolute box office megastars, aren't they?
Exactly.
That's the thing. And I just remember
Mhm.
Robert Redford being just outrageously good looking.
Oh yeah,
and,
no one can beat that, right?
Oh
I mean, I
man,
think, yep, no one can beat that. I think Brad Pitt is trying to
yeah, he'd probably be as
get
close.
there.
Yeah, but no, Robert Redford for me. And this is from a guy. I remember.
Mhm.
I remember in my must be my early 20s, or maybe mid 20s, when he came, when Havana was the movie I went and saw, and he just looked so suave all the time.
Mhm.
Made me want to go to Cuba. It really did.
That is true. It's true. When you think about it, Nick, and I was talking with my husband about this, is that there are actors from, whether it's from the 30s all the way to the 70s, that had that aura of elegance and the aura of, how should I say it, Nick? It's in the tip of my head. They had serious presence that
Yes, yeah,
that you on the screen, that you would, it, you want, you just get a glimpse of it on a few of them today. That's, I mean, maybe I'm just biased because I was raised in watching films that were of that period.
I think you're right, and I think sometimes we look at like the big stars of today being Brad Pitt and George Clooney and people like that.
Mhm.
And they're good, but I just, and maybe it is we're biased because we're older, but I just feel yeah, this is when it turns out no, we're just a too old. We've just
Well,
turned into
I
grumpy old
refuse
people.
to say that, Nick. You know that. For both of us, I refuse to say that. If people hear what we talk about outside the podcast, they would think we're kids, to be quite honest. So,
That's
it's like,
I just think I don't know, there was something exactly present. There was something about them. I mean, you mentioned
Mhm.
when we were chatting the other day, you talked about Errol Flynn being,
yes,
being
very good looking.
good looking lad. And big fan of Burt Reynolds as well. I remember having a conversation with my best buddy when we were younger, and we'd watched Cannonball Run, and we were saying, oh, what is it that makes Burt Reynolds so popular? And it was just, he has a presence about him that
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
just totally unique. Anyway, that's films.
Well, there were other films that were kind of, interesting, that brought some controversial topics on the forefront, like Midnight Cowboy.
Oh gosh, Hoffman and John
and
Voight.
John Voight, talked about young male prostitutes, and these guys are amazing actors as well, who had great careers. Dustin Hoffman is still doing his thing. John Voight, he's still doing his thing.
And he's Angelina Jolie's dad, isn't he?
He is Angelina Jolie's dad.
I like him. I like him. He's a good boy.
Yes. Yes. He
Anyone
fulfills
that
the
gave us
criteria of
Angelina.
presence in on cinema. John Voight. Well, I saw him in The Champ, and that was the
Yeah.
remake of The Champ. That was and then young Ricky Schroeder with young Ricky Schroeder. But yeah, and then but then Nick, we can't forget that Bond film of 1969.
No, when we talk about good-looking men, it was
Exactly.
George Lazenby. They picked him to follow on from Sean Connery. They picked an Australian male model.
Who?
Yeah, I don't know what. I'm guessing they might have been at Woodstock smoke when this decision was made.
Yes, exactly. It's like we could just get that Australian model, the one we spoke to, that we bumped into over there.
Fine, because the crazy thing is, there's some really good actors in that film. Like Telly Savalas was the baddie, and the lady's now I've just forgotten the lady's name now.
With Barbara no, that was later.
No, that was later. English actress. I can picture her, but I can't think what her name is. But yeah,
Julie Newmar. Was it Julie Newmar, Nick?
No. It'll come to me later, probably after the podcast. Yeah. But I'll drop it in the show notes if I remember.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so and it was actually really quite a good storyline. It just didn't have the best lead there was. So a bit of a shame. And then just to square that circle, or circle that square. So they're brought back. So they had to bring back and paid him a fortune. Sean Connery for You Only Live Twice. For Diamonds Are Forever.
Diamonds Are Forever,
which was the next one. And then they brought in Roger Moore. Or Live and Let Die. And
oh man, that's when the 70s were it. That's the 70s. Roger Moore, Bond, 70s. Bringing him. He should have actually. I think he should have just after Sean. It should have just gone into Roger.
Yeah, it should have done.
I think that would have made a seamless transition.
I think so. I think so. But it was. He did okay. He didn't do too badly.
Yes, I mean there was like several actors on that cast too as well, right?
Yeah. There was a lot they could have had.
Yes, but and of course the Italian Job was one of the films.
Of course, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the Italian Job. Michael Caine, the very very British. We call it a caper movie.
That's right. It's a caper movie. After Alfie, he does the Italian Job, and it's a great seamless transition with a career. Alfie as being a swinger, a swinging single to right? Isn't that a great transition?
It is. So they have to go and rob the gold from the Italians, which makes it very British. Yeah, we're going to steal the Italians' gold. And like all great films, it ends up is a do they or don't they? There's a fantastic chase around Turin in the Minis. That was a famous part of the film. Big car chase. And they then put the gold in a big bus going around the mountains. Does the bus fall off? And you're left a little bit like Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid.
Yep.
You assume that they then died when they ran out at the final scene, but you don't see it, and so you don't see it, and you don't see the same thing. What happened?
Exactly, and that's the great thing about those two films. At the end, you really don't know what happens until it's up to the audience to think about what
it's the perfect. We make it up in our head, Jack. Like I was saying just earlier on, the majority of things we think about are made up stories in our heads, and so the ending of those two films. Definitely.
But as we celebrate come together, there are like a lot of new artists though, Nick, that you and I were talking about in the year of 1969 that were amazing. Of course, we cannot forget Led Zeppelin. Got a Whole Lot of Love.
A Whole Lot of Love. Absolutely.
That is a
burst onto with that.
Yes.
And you've got to love a bit of Led Zeppelin. I'll be honest, some of the songs on that album, too many drum solos for me, for my personal taste.
Really?
Oh, they do have a lot.
No, I mean as far as you thought it was too much.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I want to hear some strings. I want to hear some guitar. I want to hear some
there's
electric
only,
guitar
there's only
here.
so much drumming I
Well,
can
we have
play.
one of the best. We've got one of the best guitarists also in that band, and of course, I think Led Zeppelin was really about celebrating all the musicians. To be
Yeah,
quite honest,
yeah,
and the great songwriting. But when I think about that song, "Whole Lot of Love," I think that to me is the hedonist anthem for Zeppelin.
yeah. Oh, definitely. And
Don't you
that
agree?
that became the theme tune of Top of the Pops in the UK. That was our weekly top 40 pop
Yes.
show, and that was the theme tune to it for many many years.
Wow.
Incredible, when you think about it.
But
So I grew
that's
up
interesting.
listening to that, not realizing it was Led Zeppelin until I was a bit older.
And that's an interesting juxtaposition because here you go, Top of the Pops, this major mainstream musical show, right, in
Yeah,
England,
totally.
from the 60s, and you have a wide range audience. And then when I think about that song Whole Lot of Love, I think in terms of like, subversive culture.
Yeah, I,
Like maybe it set the tone when they changed it. It's like, okay, 70s, here we go.
see,
We're
I
ready
don't.
to treat. We're gonna feature these artists, and then of course they did feature Bowie
Mm.
later on. You know,
Yeah, and that was the funny thing. I think because it was the BBC, probably the top brass at the BBC hadn't actually listened to the song. It was pitched. They just heard, and that was all they heard. And they said that would be perfect.
little did they know. No, little did they know, but it's okay. It's okay. They got good taste. Little did they know,
Yeah, we can
right?
live
It,
with that.
it, it flew. It's good.
Oh, who else do we have on the new ones?
We got Sly and
Oh,
the Family Stone, 1969. I mean,
biggest selling album.
oh my gosh, Everyday
Mm.
People. You know, a lot of what has transpired in the 60s. And then all of a sudden, when we talk about, coming together, being united, let's talk about our differences. This is a song that's about acceptance. And I love it and embracing. Sly Stone and, his accomplished band members who are all amazing musicians have been a huge influence to a lot of artists in the years to come. And, I can speak in regards to music that I listen to, the neo soul movement in the 90s. Um, that band had a lot of influence, especially one of my favorite artists. I reflect on neo soul, and he's an amazing producer, a Grammy Award producer, is Raphael Sadiq. He also influenced D'Angelo, and he influenced Maxwell and Erica Badu. And I think that this is a band that really brought to the limelight, combining R&B blues and also producing rock hits that
Yeah.
put them up in the charts. And you're going to see more of those hits in the 70s, the early 70s.
Oh, we're in luck with the 70s because we got the Jackson Five. We were talked about the Jackson Five with "I Want You Back" from
Oh, yes,
1969.
Nick.
One of my favourites. One of mine I played on the guitar, and that's what hurt my
Yes.
finger, my
Oh,
trigger
no.
finger. So, but well worth it. It's one of the best bass lines to play. It really
Absolutely.
gives me
Absolutely.
joy. It really is. Bit technical, but very good. Very good.
No, but
Of course, now, but there is. So we're going to talk a lot about the Jackson Five going forward, obviously. But we need to mention now the band that we're probably not going to talk about as much because in the 70s we discussing them as their individual parts, and that is of course the Beatles. It feels like they were like a supernova,
yeah.
just flashing in. 69, of course, we got the Let It Be album. We got the concert on top of the Apple headquarters, not Steve Jobs' Apple. We're talking about the music label Apple. Must have to be clear. Um, which was that was in Savile Row, and Savile Row
Hmm.
in those days, still is today actually, was where all the posh tailors, if you wanted a suit, a Savile Row suit was where you got one. Yeah, very high end. I used to have a friend actually that worked in the tailors in the Savile Row. Yeah, very expensive suits, but they did look beautiful, and they'd always be tailored. But yeah, what can we say though, Jodi? They were again
Oh my gosh. And
amazing.
you're talking about one of the greatest acts that came out of rock and roll history, the Beatles. Everybody already, fans knew that this was eventually going to happen. The tabloids, even the newspapers, magazines discussed that the Beatles were discussing that this was going to be their last album. And I think, if anything, Rupert Murdoch was already, he started, I think that's when he moved to England. And
the news of the world. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So, he definitely, people in the media definitely wanted to make this in the forefront in the press.
Yeah.
In 1969. And I was watching this documentary on the Beatles. It was a long one. It's like each episode was like 2 hours. But it was...
It's a marathon.
No, but you know what, though? If you were somebody like you or me who loved the Beatles...
It flies by.
Exactly. And watch their evolution, listen to their evolution on the vinyl. It was an amazing documentary because the footage was literally, the camera was following the four of them in the studio making this album.
Fly on the wall documentary.
That was like the fly in the wall. I mean, some of the arguments, even when a member had to walk off, and at one point even threatened that he was not coming back. I think there was George. George was annoyed at one point. Then you had John coming in late, and he was over it, walking out. And then there were moments when you see Paul by the piano looking at it, and literally his eyes are about to well with tears. And then you also see moments when Ringo, literally he looked like he was ready to, work on the session.
I know they made a lot of money, but it must have been so much pressure on them.
It is. I mean, because this is an anticipation.
Yeah,
this is a highly anticipated. I think what happened was that fans were saying, okay, we know this is the last album with the four of them, but you know what? It's like when you're in denial. Yeah. Fans were in denial. They're like, no, they're going to stay together. But this documentary really made you truly understand why they broke up.
Yeah, you said you were saying you were on the edge of tears yourself.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact is that, you could see that members at moments really depended on the collaboration. Like Paul likes to lead, and then he also depends on the collaboration of the other musicians, like with John or with Ringo and George. And what tends to happen is if one gets really pissed because somebody made there was a artistic disagreement or a disagreement in general with personality, you could see where the frustration and you could see in his eyes, and you could see him at the point where he's like, I don't even know if we're going to be able, like you could see in his eyes, like he's like kind of really sad that, will we ever finish this album? So this documentary really walks you not just in a visual, but in an emotional way of what was going on in that studio. That's intense.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, they've grown up together to a degree, and then like all these, we then grow apart and have their own projects that they want to sort out. Have you got any other little final thoughts?
Yes. So now that we're going into next episode, we will cover 1970 and the next decade.
Jodi, thank you so much. You're the best.
Oh, you're the best. But you're the best.
You're the best.
You're the best.